For the last little while, I've really had my eye on a pretty particular type of Fender Stratocaster. Basically what I was looking for was a Strat in the color Capri Orange that also had the darker wood fretboard, traditionally made from rosewood, nowadays made from Pau Ferro wood. In any case, I happened to come across this particular guitar quite recently, and it fit all the criteria of exactly what I was looking for, with one exception. I really wanted the Triple S, the 3 single coil pickup configuration. But it seems that the only Capri Orange with dark wood fretboard configuration that Fender has made in pretty recent times is the HSS layout. And there's nothing wrong with it. It sounds perfectly nice, especially when the pickup selector is in basically any position except full tremolo pickup. It's got that classic Strat glassy tone, everything that I'm looking for. And it has the benefit of this humbucker pickup down here at the neck if I want a little more bolder tone with some more body, particularly when playing distorted guitar. Absolutely nothing to be mad about there. So why do I not want this HSS configuration? Well, it's honestly a pretty superficial reason. I just really wanted this specific guitar in the classic SSS configuration. That's pretty much all there is to it. I got plenty of guitars with the humbuckers that produce the tone that I'm looking for with crunchy guitar. And for this one, I really kind of just want it for that clean Strat sound. So to me, it was a no-brainer to go ahead and scoop up this specific guitar, and I'm just gonna go ahead and reconfigure it, swap some things out to make it the SSS pickup layout. And I'm gonna do that in basically the easiest way possible. And that's to get myself a fully loaded pickguard in the SSS configuration that I'm looking for and simply swap this one out for that one. So in this video, I'm gonna show exactly how that's done. And it's really quite simple. It mostly just involves unscrewing and rescrewing a bunch of screws, though there will be a little bit of soldering needed for the line out jack here. Anyway, enough of the whys and wheres and whens. Let's get into the hows. All right, the first thing we have to do is start taking some things apart, and that will begin with getting the strings out of here. And because we pretty much need to remove this back plate to put the new strings in, I might as well get that out of here now, which will make it easy to get those old strings out of there. Then I'll remove the screws from the output jack because we're going to have to get under there. And I'll remove all the screws holding on the entire pickguard. Alright, now I can lift the pickguard away from the guitar, and the only thing still holding it in place are the wires going to the jack. So before I really do anything else, I'm going to unsolder these wires from the jack. But before I do that, I am going to slide a little piece of aluminum foil around here, just on the off chance that I get any drippage from the melting solder. I don't want it on my pretty guitar finish. Now all I really have to do to unsolder this is touch a hot soldering iron to the little wad of solder right there until it's melted enough that the wire can freely pull away. There's the white wire. I'll do the black wire. And if you've never done any kind of soldering before, but you want to kind of learn how and maybe practice a little bit to do your own guitar repairs or upgrades, this really is about the easiest way to kind of get into it, because there's not a lot you can really screw up. There's two really large points of contact where you have to solder these wires to. We're not talking about little tiny, circuit board points or anything like that. It's really just solder a wire to a big tab of metal, and make sure that you don't drip any on your guitar, and make sure you don't burn yourself. And there's really not a lot that can go wrong. And I did forget one thing, and that's the ground. And the ground attaches to the guitar in two spots. The first is right here, and I can just unscrew this with a normal Phillips head screwdriver. That pops right out. The other, which admittedly I should have done first because it would have been a little easier, is on the back. And that's right here, and it's actually held in place by another little piece of solder. So let's go ahead and heat that up and pull that right off of there. Now I can pull this back ground wire through, and the whole thing is free, and I can get this one out of the way. And I can bring in my new one with the single coil pickups. Now we're just gonna reinstall this thing in the reverse order that we uninstalled the other one. And the only tricky thing here is that you've got 4 wires you have to deal with. You've got 2 for the output jack, which are a black and a white, and you've got 2 that are ground wires, which are both black. And it can be tricky to know which ones are which, but right off the bat you can tell that the one with the little eyelet here is the ground that goes in the front, and the one pretty much alongside of it that's a little bit longer than the other ones is the one that goes around to the back. So I'll start by running this through to the back side. Find the little hole that the original one came out of and feed it through there. Get that pulled through the back, and I'll worry about soldering that in place in a minute. But first I'll screw the front grounding wire in place. Now I'm noticing that none of the wires on the new one have come stripped, so I'm going to need to do that. And if you're going to be doing any kind of guitar repairs or really any other sort of electrical work, you're going to want to get yourself a good set of wire strippers. If you only ever need to do this once, you can kind of tediously do it with something like a utility knife. Just carefully slice off little bits of that wire insulation, but there really is nothing better than a proper tool for the job. Then I'll feed these output jack wires through the little hole in the cavity here, get them to where they need to go over here, and those are ready to solder to that jack. As for the rest of this thing, it's pretty much ready to get back into place and screw back down to the guitar. As you go to seating the new pickguard in place, just make sure that there's nothing obstructing it. There's no wires kind of crumpling up under it, preventing it from laying very flat. There's plenty of space within the cavity of the body to route all of those wires and everything so that everything sits nice and flat. Now I'll get this jack soldered back into place, and a quick little tip is before you ever unsolder anything or remove wires from anything, take a quick picture of it so you can reference and know exactly where each wire needs to go when you put it back together. I did that exact thing because I forget things pretty quickly, and having done so, I can see precisely where the black and the white need to go on this. So let's get our piece of foil back in here. And there's a couple little tiny holes that I don't know if you're going to be able to see that are in each of the tabs that we need to solder to. And if you can get the wire through that little hole and give it one wrap around, it'll really help ensure that it stays in place. Now I'll just get a little new solder in there and just melt a little dot right where the wire meets up with that little tab. Now to avoid all of this excess wire bunching up as I try to put the jack down into the body of the guitar, I'm going to lift the pickguard up a little bit again and just kind of pull some of that excess in there, because there's more room under the pickguard than there is under the jack. All right, now everything in the front is pretty much finished, so I can go ahead and put all the mounting screws back into the pickguard as well as the jack. All right, pickguard is in place. Output jack is in place. So now I just need to solder on this rear ground wire. Once again, I have to strip the wire a little bit. So I'll get a little blob of solder melted right in place on the spot where I want it. And now I can take my wire, press it to that little blob, get it heated up again with the soldering iron, and it'll melt right into it. Now I just got to get some new strings put on it, so I'll leave the back plate off until I've done that, and we'll be ready to try this thing out. All right, new strings are on, and the only thing left to do is put the back plate back on. All right, let's see how she sounds. Well, I think the clean channel sounds awfully pretty, and I can't really tell much of a difference between this setup and the previous setup, particularly on the settings where I'm using some or all of the neck pickup. When I go all the way to the bridge, well, it's definitely going to sound a little different because I don't have the humbucker anymore, but that will probably be most noticeable on the crunchy channel. So, of course, yeah, when set all the way to the bridge pickup on the crunchy channel, it sounds a little thinner. It sounds a little more jangly and less fat than the humbucker guitars would, or the humbucker pickup that used to be on here. But that's all right. That's what I expected to happen. But nevertheless, I'm really happy with the swap out that I did here. I love the way it looks. You know, I wasn't so sure about the antique linen colored knobs and pickup covers or whatever that color's supposed to be called, but I think it looks pretty slick personally. Anyway, that's pretty much it. When you're talking about getting a fully loaded Stratocaster pickguard with all the stuff already on it and just doing a one-for-one swap like this, mostly all you're doing is unscrewing screws, screwing screws back in, but yeah, you do have to do a little bit of soldering. Don't let that be too daunting, and if this is the first solder job that you ever do, well, then that's probably a really good place to start because it is really simple. Anyway, that's about it for now. If you found anything about this video helpful or entertaining or otherwise worthwhile of your time, go ahead and give that like button a click.